Hey everyone, this is Ben, and I'll be reviewing the Nova 2 Lite by GameSir. This costs only $30 US, and based on the listed specs that this controller offers, it might be an absolute steal of a product if the quality and performance can match it. By the way, this review is not sponsored by GameSir, and this controller wasn't given to me. I bought it with my own money, and I'm under no obligation to say anything other than my own honest thoughts and opinions. So what comes in the box? A nice plastic case that's form-fit for the controller. That's already a positive for me. You don't see controllers in this price bracket coming included with a case. Honestly, you don't even often see controllers in much higher price brackets come with a case. Underneath that is a rectangular box, and inside is a basic 6-foot long USB-A to USB-C cable, a paper slip with QR codes for contacts and support, and a multi-language instructions manual. Inside the case itself, of course, is a controller, and underneath it, the wireless 2.4 GHz dongle. Let's do a sound test and then we'll get into my impressions. Like I said earlier, my initial impression started off positive when I saw that it came with a hard shell case. For $30, that's a pretty surprising thing to include in my opinion, and I would say that even most of the more premium priced controllers don't come standard with any case. It even comes with a slot where you store the wireless dongle using friction fit. The case is perfectly form-fitting to the controller, and the only thing that I would have hoped it had was larger slots for the thumbsticks, and that way I would be able to fit the controller inside along with the grips that I use. Beggars can't be choosers though, so it still gets 2 thumbs up from me. For the actual controller itself, it looks and feels pretty good. It definitely doesn't feel like the most premium quality controller out there, but it also doesn't feel like cheap toy plastic. If anything, my DualShock 4 here feels like it's made with a lower quality plastic than the Nova 2 Lite. They have a little bit of stippling on the back handles for grip. Ergonomically, the controller feels pretty good in my hands. The shape is something of a hybrid between the Xbox layout and the PlayStation layout. It's got the asymmetrical stick layout, the face buttons, and the D-pad similar to the Xbox controller, but it uses the same bumper and trigger style as the DualShock and DualSense controllers. It honestly feels pretty good in my hands, and even though I find the Xbox controller to be more comfortable than the PlayStation, I actually really like the bumpers and triggers of the DualSense and DualShock, and it works really well on the Nova 2 Lite. The sticks feel pretty good, slightly looser tension than on my G7 Pro, but not sloppy, and the centering springs feel good as well. There's no excessive wiggle when the sticks are at neutral. The face buttons are all membrane except for the D-pad, which uses tactile switches. I don't mind membrane buttons, even though I prefer micro switch. It looks and feels like they were trying to imitate the Series X, and it's honestly pretty close. The ABXY feels very similar. It takes maybe a bit more force to actuate, but it's also less rattly than on my Series X controller. The D-pad visually looks identical, but the Series X D-pad is a lot more tactile. I don't play fighting games or games that utilize the D-pad very much, but I can see people having an issue with feeling out the diagonals with this D-pad. The bumpers also use tactile switches, they're easy to press and have a good bounce back, and the triggers have a good amount of travel and tension, similar to the DualShock 4. They also have trigger stops, but it's the basic kind and doesn't turn the triggers into switches. It's probably the most disappointing thing about the Nova 2 Lite, but for $30 I can let this slide. It also comes with 2 back buttons, and they've actually impressed me a lot. They also use tactile switches, and they're positioned well for my middle fingers. They're easy to click and have a pretty short press. There's no slop to them at all. They feel tight and solid. Honestly, they feel better than the back buttons on my G7 Pro. They also have the same stippling texture as the back handles, and I don't understand why companies don't do this with all of their back buttons and paddles. I had to put DIY grips on my other controllers because I hate how smooth and slippery they feel without them. Honestly, overall, I'm pretty impressed with how much this controller offers for the price. This controller is a standard multi-platform gamepad. It works for PC, Nintendo Switch, Android, and iOS, and connects through wired, 2.4 GHz wireless, and Bluetooth wireless. And I'm sure that if you purchase certain third-party adapters, you can connect and use it for your Xbox and PlayStation consoles as well. It's got some pretty nice additions for being a super budget controller with the 2 back buttons and the trigger stops, but the trigger stops don't convert into switches. They just shorten the travel to about a third of the full press. It's still pretty useful to me though. It still makes it faster to spam the triggers and will automatically switch them into hair trigger mode when you engage the trigger stops. Just make sure that you don't switch the hair trigger mode in the app while using the stops. I had issues in games where my gun would stop shooting while I was still pulling the trigger, and I figured out that it was because I had set the hair triggers to adaptive mode in the software app while using the trigger stops. When I turned off the hair triggers, it stopped giving me issues. The sticks use GameSir's well-tuned Hall effect modules. I know we'd all love if they were TMR modules instead, but that's not really feasible for a controller this cheap, and GameSir's Hall effects are actually very good compared to other Hall effect modules, especially the older ones. Hall effect modules can still be very fast and accurate, and these ones definitely are. They have a resolution of about 400 from center to edge, have a pretty decently linear response curve based on my really crappy hand testing, and have a 1000 Hz polling rate by default on wired mode. There hasn't been any official stick latency tests done on it, as of the recording of this video anyways, but the button latency is very good wired and okay on dongle, and based on my testing through games, the sticks should also have very good latency, at least on wired. I only play wired and on PC, so I don't have any useful information when it comes to wireless performance or performance on mobile and Switch. There's also a charging dock that you can buy separately for wireless charging. The controller only has a 600 mAh internal battery though, which is not the most ideal if you like long wireless gaming sessions. If your main game is COD multiplayer, and you're looking for a very affordable Hall effect controller with good performance, the Nova 2 Lite might be it for you. I've mained this controller for about 3 weeks now, and honestly, in multiplayer, I really can't tell much difference in gameplay over my G7 Pro, which has been my main FPS controller since I've had it. The latency feels good, and it's more than accurate enough for me to have good centering. In COD Multi, I'd say that the 4 most important things to be good at the game are good game sense, quick reaction time, low latency, and good centering. With the TTK in COD, things like stick accuracy for good tracking isn't quite as important because you just die so fast. Really, my biggest issue with the Nova 2 Lite is that it only has 2 back buttons, so I do have to take my thumb off the stick to hit some of the face buttons, but that's a very minor nitpick for a $30 controller, and for most people, 2 back buttons is more than enough anyways. I'll also say that there seems to be a bit of a different sensitivity with the sticks on the Nova versus GameSir's TMRs and even FlyDigi's Hall effects. I've had to lower the in-game sense a notch in all of the games I play versus where they usually are with my other controllers. In Halo, I was having a bit of a harder time adjusting to the sticks on the Nova 2 Lite. I've never used the G7 SE and HE, but I know that they're some of the most popular controllers that the Halo Infinite pros use, and they have GameSir's Hall Effect sticks as well. Either the Hall Effects in the Nova are tuned differently from the ones on the SE and HE, or I've just gotten used to the new TMRs and need to play with the Novas more to retrain my muscle memory. Infinite is also notorious for their sensitivities and dead zones feeling different after every update, so it could be that as well.
Double kill. Moving here.
Using it for Warzone felt pretty decent overall, but just like in Halo, sometimes I had a little bit of trouble with my tracking, and the longer TTK in Warzone and Halo versus COD Multi made it stand out a bit more. After lowering my sensitivity though, I was tracking a lot better, and the more I used it, the more comfortable I got with it.
Look, I just left.
Overall, I think the Nova 2 Lite is solid, especially in Black Ops 6 multiplayer. The Nova 2 Lite uses GameSir's Connect app, and you can get it either from the official GameSir website or through the Microsoft Store for PC. Check to see if your controller needs a firmware update when you first connect it to the app. Usually the firmware on controllers out of the box are outdated. You'll see a red dot on this firmware upgrade icon here on the top right if there's an available update. The dongle gets updated separately from wired, so make sure you upgrade both wired and wireless. Going through the different options, you have the lights, where you can change the color of the RGB on the controller. The Nova 2 Lite only has RGB on the home button, so there isn't too much to do here other than change the color and the brightness. There's also an on-off toggle for those who have the charging dock on, whether you want your controller to automatically turn on or off when you put or take off your controller from the dock. You can set your controller's vibration level as well as test the strength of it here. Bottom left are your trigger settings. Here you can set each of your trigger dead zones and also turn on or off the hair trigger mode. Like I said earlier, if you use the physical trigger stops on the controller, keep the hair trigger mode off on the app. The controller will automatically set the triggers to hair trigger mode when you use the physical stops, and having them set to on in the app can conflict with the automatic process and cause your triggers to stop working properly. There's a default 5% initial and max dead zone set, and I always remove them. Bottom right are the button settings. In here you can customize your inputs and map them however you like. Click on an input you want to remap and set it to one of the options presented here. Click on advanced settings and you can set up multi-button mapping as well as setting up your macro functions. I don't use macro or turbo, so I leave these alone. Last but not least are the stick options. In here you can set the dead zones, anti-dead zones, curve adjustment, and stick trajectory. Both sticks have a 5% dead zone by default, and I always set them to 0. I leave the curve adjustment at default as well, since it's the most linear option, but you can play around with it and see which options work best for you in the games that you play. You can also create your own curve using these points here and dragging them with your mouse. For stick trajectory, it's mostly personal preference and whatever you feel is best for you. I personally use raw for both sticks, and there are some games like Rocket League where you'll need to set it to raw in order for you to get the proper input in the game. At the top right of the main page, you have an information icon, the firmware upgrade icon, a reset icon to reset the controller back to default settings, a button test icon where you can check to make sure all of the controller's inputs are detected and working, and a back icon to go back to the previous page. So what are my overall thoughts on the Nova 2 Lite? For $30, I think that this controller is excellent value, and performance-wise is right up there with controllers that are much more expensive than it. It's got a lot going for it, like well-tuned Hall effect sticks, the 2 well-built back buttons, lots of connectivity options, and the decent build quality. It's not perfect, of course, it's only $30 after all. The trigger stops aren't great, and the actual mechanism itself is kind of rattly when you shake the controller a bit. It's got a unique shape that might not be everyone's cup of tea when it comes to ergonomics. Luckily for me, it feels pretty good in my hands, but that's not going to be the case for everyone. It also uses membrane face buttons, which I don't personally care too much about, but I do prefer mechanical buttons over membranes any day of the week. It's also got a really small battery capacity, so wireless users won't be able to play for very long sessions before needing to either plug it in or stop playing to recharge it. Weighing the pros and cons to the price tag of the Nova 2 Lite though, I still think that it's a great controller. If you're under a very strict budget and looking for a new controller, I think that the Nova 2 Lite is the best that you can buy right now in and around its price point. And it's far better than most first-party options that still use potentiometer stick modules and cost twice as much as this controller. If you're thinking about buying this controller, I give it my thumbs up and recommendation. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I've covered everything you needed to know about the Nova 2 Lite and helped you in making a decision. Please like this video if it did help you and share it wherever you think it might help others. If you like my controller reviews, please subscribe and stay tuned for more content coming up. Thanks again, and until next time.